So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Retired Living Truth series. My name's Brett, for those who don't know me, and I'm your host today, along with my partner, Annette. Zoom. See, there's a lot of empty seats today. Can anyone guess what went wrong? COVID, Wednesday, wrong day. Yeah, so we have a whole heap of name tags outside, and I think were thinking it was tomorrow, because I had some people call and text at the end of yesterday. Is it Wednesday or is it Thursday? And good job, everyone here in the room. It was today, Wednesday. So if you want to come back tomorrow and socialize with some friends, there's probably going to be people. Yeah. So anyway, we'll be making some phone calls this afternoon, reminding people that they have the wrong day. But the good thing is we're recording this, so they don't miss out. They can get to watch the recording. So today's topic is the truth about senior living healthcare options. And this is such a big topic, and there's unfortunately no way we can cover everything. So we're going to focus on one aspect that relates to us, and we'll talk about that in detail. Did everybody get a handout? There should be a handout on your table. Great. And does everyone have a binder? Did everyone get a binder when they come in if you didn't already have one? If you don't have a binder, just raise your hand. 1, 2. If you could grab 2 binders down the front of it, that'd be great. It's just a great way for you to be able to keep all of your Yes, I see we did. Good. Yes. So many things to remember when we're doing all of this. So just for those who are new, I see some new faces. The way this is going to work, and it's pretty much the same each month, I spend approximately an hour asking prepared questions of analysts. Share some great information with you, and I will ask questions on your behalf for about the first hour. And then we'll open it up at around 11 o'clock for your questions, where you'll be able to ask the panelists anything you would like, including the people who are at home ask their questions also. What else do we need to cover? So did anyone, I'm just curious, take advantage of the consultations recently? I think 2 months ago, we had Lisa Bruce here doing a talk on trust, wills and probate. And we did some complimentary consultations with the Schultz Law Group. Did anyone take advantage of that? 1 did? 2? Good. Was that helpful? Yeah, great. I did as well. Annette and I went and saw them because we hadn't looked at our trust will in like 2 years time, 2 years, maybe it was 3 years ago. We had quite a few things even in 3 years that needed updating and changing. So if you have a trust or a will and you haven't looked at it in a long period of time, is Melissa here at all? Melissa? No? She's outside. I'm sure they would still honour that if you would like a complimentary consultation just to review your trust and see if you need to do anything. Being asked questions at the back. Let me try a different. What about now? Oh, wow, that's loud. No. So maybe if we can just monitor people at home. It was quiet, was it? Sorry about all the rumbling. Let me mute that. Okay, what about now? Is that okay? Everyone here can hear me? Great, thank you. So one thing I did want to mention, lots of technology not working correctly. Yeah, our education partners, our sponsors who make this possible. We actually had a mastermind last Wednesday, I think it was, where all of the education partners got together and we started working on topics for next year. So it was really exciting to come up with some fantastic, fun topics that I think we'll bring to the program next year. And we had a number of suggestions of ways to improve the program for everybody as well. And I would encourage all of you, if you have ideas of how we can make this program better over time, to just write them on the back of the yellow sheet and maybe just put a big star on the front. So if you have thoughts of topics, how we could do better next year, anything at all, yeah, we really appreciate your feedback because that's who we do it for, is you. So if we can make it better, please let us know. Handouts, binders we covered. Schedules. Did everyone get an extra schedule on their table? Why do you think I might have had our team hand out schedules? Wednesdays? Actually, I think it still has the wrong date on there, doesn't it, for today? Yeah, because we had hundreds of these printed. The reason we have them in front of you is we would like to encourage you, if you know someone else who would value from attending the seminars, to please pass that on to them, because everyone probably should already have one. So if you know someone who would gain value and who's like-minded, education-based, learning-based, to have them come along as your guest, we'd really love that. And if you need additional copies of the schedules, there's a whole lot out the front. So I think we'll just jump in and get started. If I could have my panelists come up and join me. Oh, Melissa, can you stand up? I was just talking about you helping us, your team, with our trust and will. And Melissa gave this to me this morning. That's why I have it here. And she asked me to have this all completely read and reviewed by the end of the week to make sure everything's the way we want it. Just a little bit of bedtime reading. Yeah. But if you would like a complimentary consultation, you weren't in the room, Melissa, so I said that Schultz Law Group would be happy to give additional consultation. So if you are interested, just see Melissa at the end of the seminar. Again, can you just stand up, Melissa, and wave your hands? Yeah, thank you. Awesome. So let's start with you, Tammy. Could you introduce yourself and just tell the audience a little bit about your background and why you're here today and why you're an expert on this subject?
Absolutely. Can you all hear me? Okay. So my name is Tammy Malley. I'm the area director for Kindred at Home. We are a skilled, Medicare certified skilled home health agency. And in Northern Nevada, we cover Reno, Sparks, Fernley, Fallon, Carson City, Gardnerville, and we have registered nurses, physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, medical social workers, home health aides, and we see our patients in their place of residence.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tammy. Ryan?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Hart. I am the owner of Amada Senior Care. We are an in-home caregiving agency that is considered non-medical. So they're the medical side, we're the non-medical side. So we send caregivers in to help with activities of daily living, transportation, meal prep, any of that stuff. I also founded a nonprofit called the Heart Foundation, which is not up there anymore, that raises money to help the senior citizens that can't afford our services because we are non-Medicare funded. So those are my two businesses.
Thank you, Ryan. I was just trying to swap over microphones before you finish. So thank you. Dory.
My name is Dory Stone. I'm a state licensed insurance agent for Prominence Insurance Company, and I specialize in helping people understand Medicare and Medicare Advantage benefits.
Thank you, Dory. AJ.
Hi, my name's AJ Reed, and I'm a market manager for Kindred Hospice, and I've also been a nurse in our community for a little over 20 years.
Thank you, AJ. So I just have a question from the audience. Is there anyone here who believes that they will never need any type of care or assistance during their lifetime? No? Good. Excellent. So you're well educated. So one of the myths is that I'm healthy and I will never need any form of nursing care, whatever nursing care might mean. And that means a whole lot of different things to different people. But a couple of the interesting things is for anyone over 65, the odds are about 70% that we will need some type of care during our lifetime. So some of us might have got through to now and never needed anything, but 7 out of 10 of us will need some kind of assistance as we continue to age from the age of 65 plus. So, but the other part of the good news is only a very small percentage of us will ever need long-term care. So we think of like nursing home, somewhere we're going to get placed. That's for a very, and not that we get placed, but it's for a very small percentage of people. But what we really want to talk about today is that 70% odd that we are going to need some assistance and what kind of options are out there for us. So we have a nice little graphic that I thought would help us as we go along, and you have this in your handout. It's on the second page of your handout, and the same with the people at home. For those people who are at home, if you didn't notice in the reminder email that you received yesterday and again this morning, there was a link in there that will take you to the website where you can download the handout so you can follow along if you so wish. So who would like to stay in their home forever? whatever home means. Yeah, most of us would. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So we're going to start with home because that's where we ideally all would like to be. And on this axis, we have on the left-hand side going up is cost. So the least expensive place, I'm sure we'd all agree, is to be in our home. We all agree with that? That's a less expensive option than most other options in terms of where we might live. And then as we go across from left to right, we have the level of care or support. And for home, how much support and care do we have if it's just us? A little or a lot? In our home, how much support, care, supervision do we get from others? About zero. Well, our son would disagree. He would say he gets way too much supervision, but that's kind of an exception. He would beg to differ. But yeah, in our home, that's the least expensive place to be. Sure, there's costs, but as we look at other types of care, you'll see a cost increases, and so does the level of care or supervision that we have. And then at the very top is hospitalization. And this is what we'd probably all prefer to avoid if we could, correct? No one wants to go to the hospital. But one of the things that we do know for not a large number, but for a certain percentage of the population, especially as we age, we're going to possibly have a trip to the hospital. What might be some things that cause us to end up in the hospital? Any thoughts? A fall, yeah, that's the most common one we see as we age. It's, our balance possibly isn't as good for some of us, and we fall and break a hip or a leg or whatever it might be, and it's a trip to the hospital. Or perhaps we have a stroke, or we have some other complication that we need help with, and it's a trip to the emergency room and some hospitalization. So I'd like to start with AJ to help us. I have one more box to put on here, which is kind of hidden on our screens here. Let me just move this out of the way. And that's what we kind of sometimes refer to as nursing care, or perhaps more correctly, skilled nursing facility. And there's a lot of misconceptions about what nursing care means. So AJ, could you help us just understand what is this term nursing care? Is that a place we go? And how does that relate to hospitalization and hopefully eventually being back at home?
Okay. Many people refer to nursing homes as a place that they go for like physical therapy or long-term care. Anymore today as healthcare professionals, we've moved towards the terminology of skilled nursing care, also abbreviated as a SNF. And skilled nursing care is utilized typically when an individual has maybe had some sort of decline. Typically, individuals have a hospitalization, maybe for an illness or an injury, and transferring back home isn't the best idea because maybe all of your strength hasn't returned from that insult. So individuals may transfer to a skilled nursing facility to get some physical therapy or occupational therapy to try to bring them back to the state they were in before they had that illness or injury. So moving back home is going to be successful. Typically, individuals that go into skilled nursing have Medicare. I think it's the one thing that most people are familiar with. Medicare generally will cover about 100 days at skilled nursing. And the first 20 days are paid for 100% by Medicare. And then from there, there tends to be a sliding scale for copays that an individual would either pay out of pocket, or if you have a secondary insurance, that would pick that up. So the goal of skilled nursing is to improve your state of health or your strength so that you can return back home to your environment. Every so often, returning back home isn't going to work. People can stay in some of the skilled nursing facilities long-term. That's more so where that term nursing home comes from, more of a long-term care stay. Other times people may decide to transfer to an assisted living. If somebody has dementia, we talk about memory care units. There's also group homes, or then of course, returning back to your home environment.
Thank you. And then, so is skilled nursing always somewhere separate from the hospital, or is that part of the hospital? How does that kind of fit together?
It's always separate. None of the hospitals actually have skilled nursing within the hospital. I think one important determination can also be the difference between an acute rehab hospital and skilled nursing. So we have a couple of acute rehabs here in Reno. It is a little bit of a higher level of physical therapy. So a person needs to participate in that physical therapy at a higher level than skilled nursing. So sometimes skilled nursing can be a little bit easier. You don't have to perform at the same level. But either way, both of them are outside of the hospital system.
And is that the same true for rehab? All forms of rehab are outside of the hospital?
Not all forms of rehab are, well, yes, all forms of rehab are outside the hospital. However, the hospital does have physical therapists that generally come in and do an evaluation to determine what level that a person can perform at and what the next step is, whether it be acute rehab, whether it be skilled nursing. But another very important aspect that Tammy will be talking about is home health care, physical therapy in the home environment.
Okay, thank you so much, AJ. So Ryan, if we could jump to you, I'm going to put up the next box, in-home care. So what is in-home care? AJ touched on that just really briefly. So what does in-home care mean to us? Is that someone who's coming in and doing our cooking or mowing the lawn or?
We don't mow lawns.
Don't mow lawns.
No,
Okay.
and we're not a maid service. That's the two most common ones I get. We can do pretty much anything as long as it's non-medical. So activities of daily living, or ADLs, you'll hear the acronym quite a bit. We can help with anything like that. We can't do physical therapy. We can't do occupational therapy. That would be Tammy. So we can do anything like transportation, medication pickups, anything that's really inside the bounds of being non-medical. So some of the things that we get kind of confused on sometimes is, can we, dispense medication? Can we actually put medication in people's mouths? And the answer is no. By state law, we're not supposed to do that. It's a little bit of a gray area, but I don't want to get in the weeds there. So pretty much anything is in bounds. We don't, scrub baseboards and stuff like that, but we can do.
Go
on. Okay. So we can do pretty much anything in the house, meal preparation, really anything that's non-medical we can help do. So what we find is like with Tammy or with AJ's company, we cross-pollinate quite a bit. So in other words, somebody can be on home health and receive our care at the same time. And then we can help with the range of motion exercises. We can't teach someone how to do the range of motion exercises because we're not medical, or we're not physical therapists or occupational therapists, but we can absolutely help with those exercises and keep them on a routine. And with hospice, they have, usually they're elderly, they have a terminal diagnosis. And so they have their husband or wife or significant other or their kids or whatever the case may be coming in to help them. Well, the level of care gets to be to a point where the families can no longer suffice. So they'll bring us in to help right alongside either home health or hospice. So we cross-pollinate a ton, and we refer business back and forth all the time. When the physical therapist is in there doing their exercises and they say, "Man, this lady could really use some more help," then they say, call so-and-so. It's not always Amada. But there's other agencies out there that do what I do. So that's kind of how it intertwines with everything. And we can go anywhere where where our client lives. So assisted living, independent living, memory care is not too often because they have pretty intensive one-on-one care, not one-on-one, but a lot more people to patients as caregivers. So we can be anywhere that the patient is, and we can do anything that's not considered medical.
So you can do medication reminders?
Medication reminders. We can actually bring the medication over to the patient, and we can put the medication in their hand, and we can help guide their hand to their mouth. And that's considered a hand-to-hand assist, and that's completely inbounds. Yes, and medication pickups too. That's a big one that we do quite a bit.
And is this something like long-term, short-term, both, in terms of an in-home care agency like yourself going in and helping someone?
Yeah, so I've been in business about 6 years. I started the company 6 years ago, and we have patients still on service that we started with. And I've heard of people doing, 15, 20 years. The problem is not being funded by Medicare can get really expensive, and not a lot of people have the money to continue on for years and years and years. So there's kind of that fine line that we're always towing with, how much is the level of care? How much care do they need? Do they need 24/7 care? 24/7 care gets really expensive from a company like mine. So we're always towing that line of what can we afford? Long-term care insurance pays for us. We do have a contract with Senior Care Plus. That's a really kind of a offshoot contract though. And then other than that, we can get some veterans assistance from the VA. And other than that, it's pretty much private pay. So no Medicare, no Medicaid. There are certain agencies that will take Medicaid, but we're not one of them.
And so then you said long-term, so you've helped clients over a long period of time. What about short-term? I've gone through rehab, I've been in a skilled nursing facility and now I'm being sent home. Are there situations where you just go in maybe for a couple of months to assist, or is it always long-term?
Absolutely. The majority of our referrals actually come from skilled nursing. So they'll have a post-acute, broken hip or even a stroke. People rehab pretty well from strokes oftentimes. So we'll be in there for, a month, 2 months. I don't like to take cases that are only going to be a couple days because there's a ton of front-end work that goes into, assigning a caregiver and actually getting a caregiver matched up with our patient. So 2 weeks is kind of the minimum I usually like to do, but we've had people for 2 weeks and they get better. I mean, we want our patients to get better. That's the whole goal. Oftentimes there's a disease process though that they're just not, we deal with a lot of cancer, a lot of Parkinson's, stuff like that. So.
And you mentioned the hospital might refer an in-home care agency. Do I have to work with the one the hospital or the doctor suggested, or can I call around? Should I call around? Are there questions I should ask before engaging the services of an in-home care agency?
Yes. So we do get a lot of referrals from the hospital directly. They actually tend to give them their patients a list and say, call around, see who's available. Right now, help is so hard to get that you're going to have to call around oftentimes because, I have to turn cases away because I'm not going to take a case and then not be able to cover it. But yeah, I highly suggest calling around, seeing who the best fit is. You can even have people come out, like we come out and do consultations. My guy Vic right there is my right-hand guy in the field. He comes to your home. He'll do the consultation with you right there in your living room or wherever you're most comfortable and determine if we're the right fit for you.
Thank you. So I might jump to you if I can, Tammy. And I'd just like to know, firstly, how do your services differ from what Ryan described to us?
Sure. So there are two, is this on? Okay.
You all here, Tammy?
Sorry, I'm not used to a microphone. So there's two main differences between our services, and we do work in conjunction often and rely on on caregivers from a personal care agency like Amada. But the two differences are that our services are usually covered by an insurance company, covered by Medicare or Medicare Advantage. Our services are covered 100%. If it's a commercial insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Hometown Health, there is often a copay or co-insurance for our services. But all insurance companies, most insurance companies will have a home health benefit, a skilled home care benefit. The other difference is that we follow the orders of a physician. So all of our nurses, all of our therapists will be performing their care under the order of either a primary care physician or a cardiologist, pulmonologist, a specialist that is providing the care.
And then how is this different to what AJ was talking about in terms of a skilled nursing facility, in terms of what we would see there?
Okay.
What's the distinction?
So as we were saying, we have registered nurses and physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, and medical social workers. Very similar to the clinicians that are in a hospital setting or a skilled nursing setting, but we're performing our service and our care for our patients in their place of residence. And that can be, as Ryan said, that can be their private home. That can be an assisted living facility, a senior living community, independent living, a group home setting. We cannot be in a skilled nursing facility because that's a duplication of services. But anywhere a patient lives, if they're at their daughter's home, we can provide services there. And do you want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a lot to say. So really what we do are similar to the services that are received in a skilled nursing facility or a hospital, but they're more geared toward restoring that patient's independence. Our clinicians work in a rehabilitative way. we want to help. The nurses will help patients with understanding their disease process, so disease education. They'll help with medication management. They'll set up a system so that patients not only understand why they're taking their medications, but then they're set up for success to take their medications correctly. Oftentimes when patients go to a physician's office and they're put on different medications, they get a sheet that tells them why and what it's all about, and then that goes in the trash or gets lost, and they don't remember why they're taking the medication. So it's one of our nurses' biggest jobs is to help them understand this is why, and this is why it's important for you to stay adherent to your medication regimen. So disease education, medication management, our nurses can do wound care in the home. They'll come in and they'll check their patient's vitals. One of the things that we have that's new for us is we can do some cardiac monitoring in the home, which is new and very exciting. Similar to some cardiac monitoring that you have to be in the cath lab at the hospital. It's very invasive, so we can do that in a non-invasive way. So that's where our nurses fit in. Our therapists, similar to a skilled nursing facility or a hospital, will come in and help with exercises. They'll help with fall prevention and balance, gait stability and balance. They'll do an assessment of a patient's home or living environment to make sure that they don't have things that are unsafe that they can trip over. So they'll do a sort of a home modification and many other similar things from a hospital setting, physical therapy. Occupational therapists will come in and help with activities of daily living. And they can help with patients, for example, with pulmonary disease, and help with energy conservation, breathing techniques, and other things that occupational therapists do. Speech therapists, again, conjunction or continuation of a skilled nursing facility or hospital stay. They can work with communication, cognition, swallowing, all the same things that a speech therapist in a facility would do. And then our medical social workers work with patients and families to help them obtain resources in the community, Meals on Wheels and other such resources that seniors may not know are available. Our social workers help set that up, as well as work on advanced directives and some other things that are important for families. One of the things is we're talking, and I was thinking, it is a continuation of hospital and skilled nursing care, but we don't have to get our patients' referrals from a facility setting. This is one of my when I first started working for Gentiva and then Kindred 13 years ago, I was talking with our primary care physicians. There is so much that we can do in a home setting with nurses and therapists that can prevent hospitalizations. And that's all of our biggest goal, is to keep patients in their homes. And so if we get a referral from a primary care physician, we can go out and provide a lot of these services. Patient doesn't have to come from a hospital or a facility.
And you find that more desirable in terms of the level of care and obviously avoiding going into the hospital?
Absolutely. There's so much that we can do, especially with the progression of a chronic disease, that we can do to prevent an unnecessary exacerbation of heart failure or COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. So that would be our preference. We would love to have all of our patients come to us first rather than have a hospitalization first.
Thank you. So what's our alternative to not using in-home healthcare? If I decided I didn't want to use in-home healthcare because maybe I'm ignorant and I didn't know anything about it, what's the alternative? That's being in the hospital or in a skilled nursing facility?
A hospital, a skilled nursing, usually for a skilled nursing stay, you do need to have a 3-day stay in a hospital in order to qualify for skilled nursing. There's some times that you can go around that. It's very difficult. Yeah, it has to do with
So if I'm not kept in for 3 days, it's not even an option to go to skilled nursing. So I need help.
Unless you private pay.
Yeah, and I was going to say private pay or a private caregiver, a family member. But a lot of times we don't want to be a burden on our family. And so one of the things that we always say is, a lot of people, this is a benefit that you have earned paying for your Medicare and your Medicare Advantage plan for years, and people should take advantage of that.
And is there any reason why I'd want to stay in skilled nursing, or what's the difference in me staying in skilled nursing long term versus going home and having care?
It's the level of care. So there are patients that we see in the home that our care just isn't enough, because unlike Ryan, where they can be there daily, they can be there throughout the day. Our nurses and therapists are usually in our patient's home for about an hour. The first visit is longer because there's a lot of some paperwork that needs to be done for Medicare. But usually the visits are about an hour. And our nurses come 2 to 3 times a week, and our therapists come 2 to 3 times a week. And we keep our patients for 30 to 60 days. A certification period is 60 days. If we haven't reached our patient's goals, and that's one thing I wanted to mention earlier, we do follow the orders and the plan of care designed by our clinicians and a physician, but it's all based on our patient's goals. And so we have patient-centered goals, and our clinicians work interdisciplinarily. So they work together, nursing and therapy and physical therapy and occupational therapy, they all work together to help a patient reach their goals. If they reach their goal, then, or they plateau, then we discharge. We can't have a patient on service forever. We have had patients on service for a long time, and they can be on service, and then we discharge them because they've met their goals. And then sometimes they decline, and we can have them back on service. Our therapists like to call that a tune-up. So we can do that, but it's not going to be, every day throughout the day and for a long period of time. So that would be a time when a patient would need a higher level of care, either assisted living facility with personal care like Amada, or a long-term care bed at a skilled nursing facility.
But there are times where you go into the assisted living provider as well, because we have up on the chart here, I don't know if you can see it, Tammy, but in independent living, assisted memory care, and if I understood both of you correctly, you operate in all of those, provide additional levels of assistance.
Yes.
So just between the two of you, how do you work together in home care and in health? Because you said like an hour a day. If I need help, I guess with transferring, bathing, all of those things, is that when in this case, like Amada would work alongside you? How does that kind of work?
So identify a family that, or a patient and their family, because it's usually family and caregivers who are trying to do it by themselves. And they identify that this is just not enough. It's just not enough. And a spouse is struggling with some of the activities of daily living. And so our nurse or our social worker, and sometimes our therapists, but mostly it's our nurses, because we have nurse case managers. They will reach out to the private care agency and will coordinate and oftentimes do a visit together to introduce the new caregivers to our patients.
And the same goes for me with my caregivers. When they see a need for more medical type care, then we'll then transition them into home health if it's appropriate, or hospice if that's appropriate. So we really work in conjunction all the time in that regard. And we've referred multiple people to you that have not had a post-acute event. For instance, if they're having problems breathing, or UTIs in women is a big one. That is something that people go to the hospital for typically. But if it can be treated at home, we always want that. We want people to stay at home because that's where people want to stay.
So it's like preventative care, so we don't have a hospitalization.
Absolutely. Yeah. The hospitals now are really, really sticklers on readmissions. So we try to avoid that at all costs. And we're doing metrics on that all the time of how many people have we kept from readmitting by just simply having a caregiver or home health in the home.
I'm guessing it probably makes a lot of sense now with COVID and everything. If you can be at home and not around lots of other people, okay, great. So, so you get lots of referrals from the hospital. Again, as a patient, do I have a choice with which in-home healthcare provider, or do I need to go with what my doctor says?
Absolutely. You will hear.
Is Tammy's microphone still working?
It's not. Okay.
I just maybe get it up 2 miles.
Is that better? Is that better?
Yes.
Oh, somehow I had it
Muted.
muted. I'm so sorry. I hope everybody could hear all that.
Can you repeat all of that, please?
Let's get back to the very
I
beginning.
can. Might not be in the same order.
It's on before. Okay.
It was on. Oh, thanks. So you asked about getting the.
Yeah, if I'm
choice.
referred by a
So
doctor,
choice.
do I have to take the doctor's choice, or do I have to?
Yeah. So you all do, and this is a Medicare regulation that we all abide by, and all of your facilities will too. Patients have choice. They have choice for the services that they receive. And so when you're in the hospital, or you're in a skilled nursing facility, you'll usually be given a list of all of the agencies, whether it's home health, skilled care, or personal care agency, or hospice agency, any post-acute service, there should be a choice given. There are sometimes you will hear that there is a preferred agency or a preferred partnership. And that's because a facility has sort of vetted out based on quality agencies that they prefer to work with. There, in some cases, some surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, for example, have protocols that certain agencies know to follow and others may not. So they prefer to work with this agency versus another. So your doctor might recommend an agency. Assisted living facility might recommend an agency that they prefer to work with, or a hospital might recommend that, but ultimately you have choice. So you can say, I've done my research, or, my neighbor had, XYZ agency and I want to go with them because they had a good experience, and that's absolutely your choice.
Okay, thank you. And are there ever any conflicts? Do any surgeons, can they have like an ownership in an in-home healthcare where it could be a conflict and that's why they're directing patients in a certain way, or that doesn't happen with how it's regulated?
That doesn't happen in Northern Nevada.
No, okay.
I'll just say that.
Okay.
AJ knows. I cover the whole state, but it does not happen in Northern Nevada.
Okay, well, that's good to know. We're not
No.
elsewhere, yes. Elsewhere, yes. Okay, so if you got family in California, there might be a reason why they're directing in a certain direction.
Yes.
Okay. And the SNFs and even hospitals have their own home health care branches too. Some of them even have their own hospice branches too. So that's, that gets a little bit towing a fine line, doesn't it?
So a hospital will say, we want you to go with our home health or hospice agency because that's continuity of care. And take that for what it's worth. You still have a choice. You can use an agency that is not affiliated with the hospital. So I'll just leave that at that.
Well, I'm going to ask the hard question with that. So if the doctor refers me to whether it's hospice or in home, because whatever reason, continuity of care, and then I'm not having a good experience and they swap out a nurse or whatever, and I'm still not having a good experience, and my friend says that organization is lousy, do I have the right then to say I want to work with someone else?
Yes, absolutely. So at that point, you would just say, I want to discontinue my services. I want you to discharge me from your services. I'd like to try another agency because I haven't had a good experience. And that is always an option.
Okay, good to know. That's helpful.
And Brett, I think there's kind of an undertone to what you guys are discussing in the fact that we're good consumers and we research before we buy a refrigerator or a microwave or maybe a cell phone. Honestly, healthcare is no different. Individuals need to be smart consumers when it comes to healthcare. And at any point, it is absolutely an individual's right to interview multiple agencies. And I think that's a really important aspect. I've been a nurse for a really long period of time, and I want to know who's going to come into my home to provide care for my family. Granted, I've been in hospice for a very long period of time, but when we were selecting a hospice agency for one of my family members, we spoke to 4 of them. And I think it's really important to be able to do that. And I think it's one of the aspects that gets missed out in the community with physicians or hospitals. So never feel bad about being a good consumer and asking questions and asking to interview multiple agencies to find the one that's going to fit best with your goals.
Thank you, AJ. Very well said. While you have the microphone and you've mentioned hospice 4 times in that sentence, the next one I want to put up on the diagram is that term hospice care. So it means a lot of things to different people. I know some of you might have been to one of our previous seminars a year or 2 ago where we just focused on hospice. So great, you might hear some of the same things or maybe some new things. But for those who don't really know, I know a lot of people that I talk to say, yeah, hospice, that's when you got like 2 weeks to live and you need hospice. So what is hospice? Is what I said correct, or is that just?
So it was that 30 years ago. Patients would get referred to hospice and they only had a few days to be with us. Sorry. Is that better? Things have definitely changed. Healthcare in general is moving towards more of a home-based model. People are the most comfortable in their home. Generally, people strive and flourish when they're in the home environment. which is why home health is such an important aspect of care, as well as personal caregiving. Honestly, hospice is no different, other than the fact that really hospice has become more progressive over time. So our basic understanding of hospice is generally it's for any individual who may potentially have 6 months or less to be with us. In all my years of being a hospice nurse, no one's had a stamp on the bottom of their foot telling me how long I have to hang out with them. So we more so, instead of focusing on that timeline, we really start to focus more so on goals of care. And hospice is for anyone that has a chronic illness, probably cannot be cured, but their goals are to no longer go in and out of a hospital. COPD or heart failure is a great one. These individuals have exacerbations and they're in and out of a hospital. So hospice is really for individuals who want to kind of get away from the aggressive treatments and the tests and the poking and the prodding, and really focus on comfort and quality of life in their home environment. So whether that be at your home, an assisted living, skilled nursing, hospice can provide care in long-term skilled nursing, group homes, a relative's home. But essentially what we're doing is we're bringing the care into the home to keep individuals from having those hospitalizations. So it's a very specialized type of care. It's covered 100% by Medicare, Medicaid. Advantage plans actually convert back to Medicare Part A, but that stays in place. And of course, private insurance companies. Our whole goal is to bring in all the care necessary in the home to keep that person doing as well as they can do, as long as they can do it. We're very accustomed to being everybody's last resort. I get that 100%. But I think in healthcare, one of the things that we miss is that when people receive a chronic diagnosis, hospice isn't a conversation that physicians have. And I was a cancer nurse before going into hospice nursing, and I find it very unfortunate that physicians don't let families know that hospice is actually a treatment choice. There are many people out there who do not want to undergo chemotherapy or radiation therapy or diagnostics for their heart. And so hospice is very much a viable treatment plan, if you will, around what your goals of care are as an individual. So we have our own nurses, physicians, nurses' aides, social workers, spiritual care like chaplain, and volunteers. And we all work together to provide a holistic approach to your care in the home. We're not there just to treat your medical needs and manage symptoms. We're there to manage the whole individual, because spiritualism is a very important aspect to many individuals, and not addressing those issues as someone approaches passing away actually can cause a lot of issues there. So our team works together to try to provide that holistic approach. Hospice is also a little bit different in the fact that we're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we absolutely become a family's 911, because our whole goal is to keep people from going into the hospital and really stay in that home environment where they want to be. And then a really important aspect to what we do is we try to reinstill hope. People start to lose hope, and I hear it all the time, like, oh, hospice means you've completely given up. That's not true anymore. We look at hope in a very different way. We help people achieve their bucket list, and those are amazing things. We've helped patients get to Hawaii. We had an COPD patient who was starting to decline that was a huge Chargers football fan. And we wrote a letter to the Chargers, and we got 4 tickets to a box seat, and we sent our patient to go see his last Charger game. It was probably the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my time. But we transferred our hospice services to a local hospice agency so we could help that patient meet that bucket list goal. So hope is a very important aspect to hospice. Hope to be symptom-free, which we really strive towards. Hope to have better education on what to expect. Hope to make it to an anniversary or see a baby born. And having that in-home care and that stability managing medications and altering and changing medications as needed to provide that support and a good foundation actually can help people live longer with better quality of life. And most of the statistics out there show that patients live on average 30 to 45 days longer with in-home hospice support than when they're in a hospital system. Talk about losing hope. When you're stuck in a hospital, that's where no one wants to be there. And then the other thing that we reinstill is control over your healthcare. When you're in a hospital or a skilled nursing, you're told when to take your meds and when your dinner is going to be served and when you can get a bath. So we are really asking our patients to be active participants in their healthcare, in the fact that we very much work as consultants in the home. And we're going to provide disease process education and medication education, and we make suggestions. But our care is focused around a patient and a family's goal of care. So there are no have-tos anymore. It really is empowering individuals to make informed decisions. And that's really at the root what hospice is all about. Of course, we're end-of-life care, but there are really other important aspects in empowering individuals to make decisions and reinstilling hope. And then again, bringing in all of the family and supporting family as well. And then I think another really important aspect to hospice care is when someone does pass away, we provide supportive services to family, grief counseling and bereavement counseling for a minimum of 13 months. And I think many families worry about who they're leaving behind and what support they're going to have. So we do individual bereavement counseling, we do group counseling. But I know one family that we talk to at least 3 to 4 times a year when they hit anniversaries and birthdays and the date of passing. And we've actually been in contact with this family for over 8 years. So there's a lot of help, not only for a patient, but the family as well. So unfortunately, hospice is kind of a taboo topic in our culture, but it's a really important aspect to care, especially in the home, helping to keep people where they want to be. So at any point, if anybody's ever interested in nursing, families can call in. I've had patients' neighbors call in and say, hey, my neighbor is not looking so hot. I told her I was going to call you. A nurse like myself will come into anybody's home at any point just to have the conversation. Let's talk about what's going on with you. What's happened medically? What are your goals? Where do you want to go from here? And then we talk about the resources. So whether it is, hey, I think home health is more in line of what you're looking for, or I think you really could be well supported by hospice. So anybody out in the community can call. Physicians make referrals, hospitals make referrals, healthcare agencies like Amada can make a referral, as well as home health. And we all kind of work in tandem to make sure that we're meeting the goals of care that you guys have at home.
Thank you, AJ. I had a whole series of questions, like I need to ask you this and then you answered it. And I need to ask you this and you answered it. So
Good.
I like the way your mind works. You're very good at articulating all of it. But I do have 2 questions that came up from that. If I'm in hospital, I'm terminal, I've got 6 months, the doctors are saying, you're not going to be cured from whatever is ailing me. And I've decided I've had enough of the hospital. I just want to go home. Is there any reason that you can think of why I wouldn't reach out to hospice?
No, there are certain things once in a while that provide limitations. We can't do a ventilator support at home. That's a little too high level of care. But for the most part, we can troubleshoot. I have a lot of families that I've helped. Maybe it's somebody that lives alone. Okay, let's put together a safe plan to get you home in the home environment. And maybe it's hospice services where we're trying to get somebody from our team in every day to support somebody at home. Maybe it's, oh gosh, even with a daily visit from somebody on my hospice team, it's not quite enough. Let's pull in Amada to provide some personal caregiving to help with some of those other aspects. I think the beauty of hospice is most of us are pretty well versed in community resources. I've gone in and met families in the hospital. And when we really sat down and talked about everything, we went in a different direction. Maybe skilled nursing is a better stop. But we try to put together a safe plan. So
other than those few exceptions, it would behoove me to reach out to hospice if I was in that situation. I'm missing an opportunity by not reaching out to hospice. Would that be correct?
absolutely. And I think the only other thing is if somebody's getting aggressive treatment for their illness, that still doesn't kind of fit in with the philosophy of hospice. But when I sit down and talk to a family, if really that's their perspective, I'm going to say, hey, I have a friend. Her name is Tammy. I'm going to call her and she's going to come talk to you about home health.
And then lastly, we hear this term palliative care. Has anyone heard the term palliative care? Yeah. So how does that fit in with hospice? Is that the same? Is that different? Just for those of us who don't know.
So it's different. Palliative care is kind of a new healthcare term that has kind of come in. All hospice is palliative care because palliative care is comfort in nature. That's the technical term. But it has been a new layer of care that is coming into our communities. Palliative care in its truest nature is a consultative service. Hospice is hands-on care. Home health is hands-on care. Palliative care is consultative. So palliative care can be paid for by Medicare, but essentially it's a individual, usually a physician, a nurse, or a nurse practitioner who is providing guidance for an individual. So palliative care is typically used for individuals who have a chronic illness. Somebody that maybe has heart failure or COPD. Palliative care can touch base with those individuals on average about once a month. How are you doing? Do you need anything? Are there any additional resources that I can help you with? They can talk about the disease process. So palliative care very frequently will come in and talk about, let me explain COPD. We have many physicians that are amazing, but we know once in a while our doctors don't have a whole lot of time to sit with us and spend an hour answering questions. They're kind of in and out. So palliative care will provide that disease process education. And they are more so a bridge, if you will, between hospice and say home health or a hospitalization. They're helping to provide guidance on your disease process, what it may look like as time goes on, and what resources might be the best to utilize at that time. So palliative care frequently sees individuals when they're in the hospital. Maybe they've had a couple of hospitalizations. Palliative care will come in and talk about, hey, what are your goals? What do you want to see your healthcare look like over the next 6 months? Okay, you're very much in the mind frame of aggressive treatment. I think home health is a great option for going home now. Or they may say, gosh, it sounds like your goals of care more so meet hospice. So they're that consultative service that kind of sits in between hospice and home health to help provide resources and to answer questions even when patients discharge the hospital. But they don't provide hands-on care. And I think that's a really important aspect to know. Families will hear, oh, I think I want palliative care. And they do a great job providing guidance, but who's going to help you at home? And that's something that everybody should know.
Great. Thank you, AJ.
Welcome.
So our favorite topic I want to jump to with you, Dory, is Medicare, Medicare Advantage. So, because it's such a simple topic, isn't it? For those who know, who are experiencing it. In fact, I had an individual in the room say to me this morning, they're turning of that age, 65, and they're being inundated by all this mail regarding Medicare and Medicare Advantage. And it's like, oh, all these options. I thought it was meant to be simple. But anyway, Dory's going to make it really simple for us. So, Dory, if we could start with the diagram that we have up on the screen here. Could we start at the top and kind of work our way around as to what Medicare or Medicare Advantage does or doesn't help us with? And I'd suggest everybody, if you don't already know, to take out that diagram, maybe just circle the ones where Medicare, Medicare Advantage helps, and maybe put a cross or a little X against the ones where it does not. So if we started at the top with hospitalization, and you can see it up on the screen there.
Can I touch on the hospice thing first?
Oh, yeah,
real quick?
please, sure.
Okay. Just because it's really important for everybody to know that when somebody goes into hospice, it goes back to Medicare 100%. So it doesn't matter what you have, it'll go back to hospice I'm sorry, to original Medicare, and it'll be paid 100%. And I say this because recently we have somebody on a Medicare Advantage plan in Carson City, and she went into hospice into a facility in Carson, and the facility demanded $10,000 for her to go into the facility. And she didn't realize that she could demand to be, taken to somewhere else. And so we're working on that, but that is important to know that you can say no and leave that facility and go somewhere else. So I did want to touch on that.
Okay, so you've answered one box. The hospice care is definitely covered by Medicare, Medicare Advantage. And from what you said, Advantage reverts back to Medicare for hospice. Yep.
Exactly. Yes. Okay.
So hospitalization.
Okay.
Does Medicare, Medicare Advantage help us there?
Yes. So original Medicare does provide hospitalization. Basically, with original Medicare, a person would have to pay a portion of the hospitalization or the doctor visit, basically, and then the services are covered. But you're always going to pay a portion of any service that you get with original Medicare, with no out-of-pocket maximum for any services that you get. On the other side of that, if you have some sort of a Medicare Advantage plan, you usually have a copay in the hospital for a certain number of days. For instance, it could be $100 a day for days 1 through 7, and then no copays after that. And then your out-of-pocket for that calendar year could be $2,900. And whereas with original Medicare, you could potentially pay 20% of whatever that hospital bill is, and there would be no out-of-pocket maximum. So that's hospitalization. So then with the skilled nursing facility, it is covered, and it's covered 100%. So, that's with the Medicare Advantage plan. So, and with the original Medicare, after the first 20 days, after the 21 days after that, there is a copay that you pay daily for that. So original Medicare does have more payments due. With the assisted living, independent living, memory care, the facilities are not covered, but the providers that go in there or the medications that are provided, those are covered, but not the facilities themselves. And in-home healthcare, yes, there's that is all covered as well with a Medicare Advantage plan.
What about Medicare?
There is care, but you always are going to pay some co-insurance, which is also going to continue to go towards no out-of-pocket limit.
Okay. So yes to AJ and hospice, yes to Tammy and in-home healthcare, no to Ryan,
Right.
home care,
Right.
and no to independent living, assisted living, memory care as far as
Facility.
living, rental being in there.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, great. So I think we've got that. And then the next part we wanted to talk about is some of the differences at a high level between original Medicare and Medicare Advantage. Why would I look at a Medicare Advantage plan? So can you just kind of run us through this table? And do you want to mention the workshop as well? Because we know there is so much information when it comes to Medicare.
Yes. So Marilyn Stevens is going to do a Medicare 101 seminar on September 30th. She's with Prominence, and you don't want to miss it because she's spectacular. So I'll say that. And
I see you blushing up there, Marilyn, behind your mask. We're expecting a lot now. You've been set up a big thing. So it's actually on your handout. And for those people at home, we'll actually put up a poll where you can register for that. And for those in the room, on your yellow evaluation form, there's a place where you can indicate that you would like to attend that workshop. And I'll talk about that again more shortly. But let's go back to the chart, Dory.
okay. So with original Medicare, you get hospital and doctor services. And that's it. And like I said, there's no out-of-pocket maximum. You generally pay a deductible for the hospital and the doctors. And then you also pay 20% after those deductibles with no out-of-pocket limit. Also, there is no ancillary benefits like dental, vision, hearing. or over-the-counter benefits. They do include wellness benefits, and an Advantage plan does require that Medicare does require that any other plans give you at least as much as the original Medicare, which an Advantage plan does. So they do have, a lot of wellness benefits in original Medicare. And those wellness benefits are colon screenings and mammograms, bone density, diabetes screenings, things like that. So when you get to a Medicare Advantage plan, what you get in addition to your hospital and your doctor stays are that they are now copays with the maximum out of pocket. And then you get dental, vision, hearing, and prescription coverage. With original Medicare, you get no prescription coverage. So you would have to buy a prescription drug plan to have your prescriptions covered, which is also an additional premium. Also with the Medicare Advantage plan, you get an over-the-counter benefit. For instance, $105 a quarter, which you can get at a pharmacy for such items like cold remedies, pain relievers, vitamins, and heating pads. Excuse me.
Is everyone aware of that? $105 a quarter that you can use in pharmacy? I didn't know that until Dory was telling me the other day with Medicare Advantage. Nice perk.
Yes. The other thing that you get with the Medicare Advantage plan, in addition with the preventative benefits, like with the diabetes screening, is that the Medicare Advantage plan gives you a prescription drug plan and gives you your diabetes medications. Some of them are on their formulary at a lower copay because they have a better formulary item. I don't know what the word is, but some of their prescriptions have a better copay for those diabetes items. And you can also get a free monitor from the Medicare Advantage company because they want to incentivize people to get their diabetes care done, because it's very important. I've talked to many people that take their diabetes because they can't afford it. They do their shots every other day instead of every day. So it's good to be able to help them be. Get it back to you. Anyway, so it's very important for people to be able to get their care and not self-manage because they can't afford their medications. I'm trying to think of other things that are the flu shots, the pneumonia shots, those are covered 100%. There's also depression screenings. I guess in these times, that's super important. That's a free screening, which is important for a lot of people. There's also medical nutrition therapy services, which helps people that have diabetes or kidney disease, so that can help them work through make sure that they're eating the right foods and getting the best care for their conditions.
Okay, thank you, Marilyn. So there's obviously a lot to know in between the differences that obviously we can't cover today.
That's why you want to go to the 101 on September 30th with Marilyn Stevens.
Perfect. And Marilyn will go into a lot more detail. So thank you. Skip over that. So Alexa, can you put up the poll for those people who are on Zoom? Because we have, going in the wrong direction here. So for those in the room with the evaluation form, we have next month's seminar coming up, which is the truth about selling the home. I can't see because it's blocked out. We come across Annette and I, because we're both in real estate and help people who are downsizing and so forth. A lot of people are apprehensive when it comes to selling the home that they've owned for decades, 20, 30, 40 years, and haven't sold a home in that period. And it's like, where do I start? What's the process? What does it look like? So next month, we're just going to talk about that. If you're interviewing agents, questions to ask, what the whole process looks like from start to end. So when it does come time, if it does come time to sell a home, you're just better informed to be able to do it and can do it with confidence. So that's on October the 21st on a Thursday. And then we have 3 workshops that are coming up. The one that Dory just talked about that Marilyn's going to do on September the 30th, Medicare 101. I'll just move this so I can read what's on the screen. And for those at home, yeah, just indicate on the dialogue box that's popped up if you'd like to attend those. But on the 14th, we're going to have a workshop. Sorry, did I skip one? No, on October the 14th, also a Thursday, dealing with the stuff. So does anyone know Doug Ramseth? He's a regular attendee at the seminars. He's also a teacher at Ollie. He does lots of classes at Ollie. And he's going to help us use technology to be able to scan in photos, documents, be able to store those securely, be able to display them on a photo frame, on a TV. And part of that dealing with the stuff is how do we keep our memories when it comes to photos or items of physical things so we can see those on an ongoing basis. So he's going to help us with different strategies for that and that he uses. And then also with all of those documents that we think we need to keep that fill up the filing cabinet, how can we get those scanned in and stored securely, whether it's old tax returns or warranty documents or things we've paid for? How can we better manage that, especially if, like Doug, you downsize and you don't have space to take everything with you? So, you know, Doug spent a lot of time taking photographs of things in his home that meant a lot, and then he has them displayed up on a photo frame or on his television. So he's going to walk us through how you can do that. So if that's of interest, that's on October the 14th. And then on November the 4th, Tammy's organised for us through Kindred in-home healthcare to do a workshop on low vision. So as we age, as we've probably noticed, I noticed last night coming back from a meeting in Carson City and it was dark, my eyes don't work as well as they used to when I was younger in terms of, you know, vision at night. Can anyone relate to that? It's a little harder to see as we get older. Yeah, so there's some things we can do about vision. You know, there's, you know, surgical procedures and so forth, but there are some things that we can't do in terms of medical surgery and so forth, but there are other techniques in our home and we're out and about that we can employ to help us have more confidence and better use of our vision. Did I say that pretty accurately?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's on November the 4th. And each of these workshops is going to be in the training room at our office. And the location is on the yellow evaluation form. Or if you go to the website that I have up on the screen, janellegroup.com/directions. I'll come to your questions in just a sec. That'll help you get there. So we have a great big training room, and the only challenge with our office is sometimes people get confused how to find it. So on that website, you will find at the link, not only written directions and a map, but also a photo of our building so you can more easily find it. So I would just recommend going there first so you know where you're going and don't get lost. Quick question?
Your screen says the 4th, this says the 14th.
The 4th, to cross out that one, it should be the 4th, Thursday, November the 4th. Is that a Thursday? If someone's got a calendar, I think the 11th Veterans Day, which is the following Thursday, is the 11th Veterans Day. Yes. The 4th is a Thursday. Yeah. So it's meant to be So given you're going to turn in the yellow form, I would suggest just writing down the website, janellegroup.com directions, if you plan on attending any of them, along with the dates, just so you know how to get there. And Alexa, we're going to do reminder calls a few days before for those who say yes to any of the workshops. Yes. Okay, great. So what we'd like to do now is open it up to audience questions and Annette. See if there's some microphones. Have you got a couple of runners to help? Oh, Vic, great. I'll leave you alone today. So for those who are at home, if you have questions you would like to ask, you can press *9 on your phone and that will indicate to us you have a question. Or you can type in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom window. There's a little Q&A button you can click and type in a question. Or you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you and everyone in the room will be able to hear you. And then for those of us here in the room that have questions, please just raise your hand and one of our mic runners, Vic from Amada Senior Care or Amy from Prominence Healthcare will come to you. So
Testing.
down here, Amy, start with the first question. Yeah. Oh, sorry, we got one over here. One moment. Arthur was there first.
Question is for Mr. Hart. Are you implying that your services are strictly out of pocket?
No. So we can take long-term care insurance and we can funded by long-term care insurance. The veterans VA has a program called Aid in Attendance that can help pay for us, our services. And then under Senior Care Plus, there's a little contract that's coming down the pipe that we're involved with that they can help in certain cases, but that I don't want to get into the weeds too far about that. I will tell you this, that Medicare Advantage plans are discussing actually paying for our services in some capacity because of that whole readmission thing that I talked about. So they're going to do what are called IADLs, or they're talking about, which are instrumental activities of daily living, things like shopping, meal preparation, things like that, that aren't considered an actual ADL, an activity of daily living. And that we're not sure, Medicare is Medicare, so we're not sure when that's going to actually come into play. But that's the three big ones that funded by long-term care insurance, VA, and then out-of-pocket private pay.
Well, let's switch your question then over to Dory.
You're trying to get two questions into one here, Arthur. You're good. Go ahead.
Hey, I've got 17 more.
17 more.
Cool it. Let's switch it over to Dory. Does Prominence in any way, to any extent, cover their services?
No, sorry.
Not at this time.
Then truly you are not a healthcare service.
We are not.
More of a caregiving.
That's exactly right. We're non-medical.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
But it is part of our, not medical care, but our health, our well-being. Yeah, using our service. Over here.
My question is to Dory Stone. What's the major difference between Medicare Advantage and having a secondary or supplemental
Good question.
insurance policy?
You need to answer that in less than half an hour.
I know.
30
Yeah.
seconds.
Yes, there you go. A Medicare supplement is one that you have, you pay a premium for. And do you have a F? Do you have a, okay, no, I'm sorry, never mind. Let's just stop there. Okay, you pay a premium and you have a separate prescription drug plan. Also pay a premium for that. Okay. And basically the differences are you can go to any doctor, any hospital, anywhere in the country. There's no provider network as with an Advantage plan there is. You have to stay within the service area or get a referral to go out of the service area. The premiums for a supplement usually are raised twice a year, once for your age and once for the carrier raising their rates. When you're younger, it's a great deal. As you age, the premiums do tend to get unaffordable and people don't tend to travel as much. So they then start to look in an Advantage plan because it makes more sense to them. And with the federal law that if you do travel anywhere in the United States and you do have an emergency, you can go to any urgent care or emergency room and it will be covered as if you were in the network. So that's the basic differences. Does that help? Okay.
Thank you. I just learned. Always learning.
Can a supplemental plan be added to the Prominence plan, like for prescriptions?
No, yeah, they're separate and Medicare doesn't allow that.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Thank you.
Great question.
Yeah.
Hold up the microphone, Amy. Say that.
Sorry, the one difference there is an Advantage plan will include Part D prescriptions, whereas with a Medigap plan, you have to buy it separate. She said some prescriptions aren't covered, and that's right. You do kind of have to look at the formulary and
I
see.
was
it
asking
and
if there's a supplement possible, because like some of the prescriptions get very expensive.
With the supplement,
No, without the supplement.
do you just have original Medicare?
Prominence has a list of medications that they cover and that they don't cover. Some of them they don't. So I
Right,
was thinking maybe people who have expensive drugs could purchase a supplemental to help pay for them.
Right. So do you take a pretty expensive drug?
No, right now I'm fine, but
Oh.
my husband was diabetic, and there was some prescriptions that were out of pocket for some things, and he had other problems, but some of them got to be pretty expensive.
I will say that the other option too is if you have somebody local, because there is prescription assistance that you can get through the government. You go to ssa.gov and put in RX extra help.
Okay,
And if you qualify, depending on your income,
yeah.
that's how some of my clients have gotten extra help. And then your prescriptions are quite a bit cheaper.
Yeah, well, even if you don't qualify or do qualify, some of them are pretty expensive, so it doesn't really, it can break you after a while.
And that is true. I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. We frequently read that in retirement, we're likely to spend $300,000 on health matters, health concerns. Where does that figure come from? Do you know? And Medicare and long-term care seems to cover almost all care.
Who would like to take that?
Well,
Joe, is your question 300 after 65? It's
$1,000.
after
yeah.
65 years old.
Yeah.
So where did that figure come from? Is what you're asking.
For one example, what is the name of that newsletter I get? But I see it in the newspaper, and people start talking about our budgets for old age. Don't forget it can cost you $250,000. Medical care. Those are all insured.
So I know what you're referring to, Joe. I've read and seen the same thing as you plan and do those financial spreadsheets. So I guess Joe's trying to understand how could it possibly be $300,000 in retirement? So what are some things that might happen to us that would cause things to me, one is if I ended up in memory care, that's what, $80,000 a year. So I could soon hit $300,000 very easily. What are some other examples where our health gets more expensive, can't even speak, more expensive as we age?
Well, I think it would just depend on, because I have not seen that statistic, so I don't know what that's encompassing. But right, but it could be long-term care, like an assisted living facility. It could be a personal care costs, to have assistance in the home. It could be co-pays if you have traditional Medicare and you've had a hospitalization stay, that can get up really high. I think that's probably an average of all of those things combined. And if someone's got a chronic disease and their medications are, unique and novel, new, because the newer ones are usually the more expensive ones, and they can't use a generic substitution, then your drug costs could be really high. I mean, those are just some thoughts off the top of my head, which might contribute to that.
And I think these figures can be really subjective. In other words, anybody can sue anybody, right? Anybody can put out numbers. I mean, I'm serious. And do we always believe what we read on the internet type thing? It's impossible to know. And
I think someone hit it. That's probably an average of the population. And some of us are going to get off very inexpensively. And some of us, because of our health deteriorating, are going to end up paying a whole lot, like memory care or assisted living. Some that get really expensive over time. And the longer you're using any of those, the more expensive it becomes. Can we get
I have
down here?
a question at home from Kathy. Are caregivers that come into the home bonded, screened for drugs, and have a background check?
Yes to all. They're bonded under my bond. They're insured under my insurance, so workers' comp and liability, EPLI, which doesn't. I mean, I could get into it, but that's not super important. That's from my end. They are drug screened. We do drug screen every single applicant that comes in. And we even go so far as to do DMV if they're going to be driving the senior citizen around, then we will do DMV. If they're just working at a facility or if we're just providing staffing assistance to, an assisted living, then they don't need to have that screen, the DMB screen, because they can take the bus there if they need to. You know, they don't have to have, they're not going to be driving anybody around.
Thank you, Ryan. We had over here, Jane.
Yes, my thought was about the 300,000. When you think about insurance premiums paid every month, if you have long-term care insurance, it's very expensive. You know, there are a lot of additions to just medications and maybe staying in a health program of some sort. So I think a lot of times we don't think about that, but premiums really add up in a hurry. My question is to Dory about Medicare Advantage. I have a pension with Washoe County School District. I have insurance under WCSD. My thought is I went into some of these places that tell you about Medicare Advantage programs and so on. And my question was, I have a 40% discount on the premium for my insurance. And that would be negated if I went into Medicare Advantage. And I'm wondering how that would work out, how that evens out. So what I would have to do, I guess, would be to have a consultation with you or with someone else who does Medicare Advantage. The fellow I was working with didn't know anything about it. So I thought, well, he's not helpful. But, I was concerned about it because the other thing that they sprung on us this year, we have pharmacy coverage with our insurance through the school district. And all of a sudden that has become Part D in Medicare. And so we're now paying for that on Part D payments. And that was a shock because before it had always just been coverage. And because of that, I get a whole $26 of Social Security every month. And because of the Medicare pharmacy Part D, I'm now $5 in the hole because I have to pay $31 a month every month for Part D. And I thought this was really strange. And I tried to contact Social Security and couldn't get any help there at all. There was nobody available. Yeah. Well, no, I don't know what it is.
I know.
have no
But-
idea.
Yeah, they're the only ones using it as an excuse.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
So anyway, but I thought that was interesting that
Mhm.
if we have a pharmacy coverage, we have to pay extra for Part D.
Mhm.
And that didn't figure to me at all, but that's what we're doing. So
Yeah,
people need to be careful with that if they have a pension of some kind.
I'll give you my card and we'll talk.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you for the insights on costs. We had another question. Someone had a question?
have one more at home.
One more at home? Sure.
To clarify her.
And if you're at home, you can press *9 if you're dialed in on your phone, or click on the raise hand button. We'll unmute you so we can all hear you if you're in the room. Response, yeah?
Kathy, hello, Kathy, we have another question from you, but if you could clarify that over the microphone.
Which one?
There she is.
I think we hear you, Kathy.
Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, my second question was regarding the CARE Act. I have a card and it says the hospital is responsible for doing some things when someone's released to home. What if, like myself, don't have any family members, but they're obligated to comply with this CARE Act?
Yeah, AJ, have you heard anything about, so are you saying Kathy, who is obligated? It's something from the hospital is obligated by a CARE Act?
Yeah, I got this card last year, year before when I was in the hospital. I don't know where I got it, but it says the CARE Act, and the CARE Act requires hospitals to provide you the opportunity to designate a family caregiver, inform your caregiver when you are to be discharged to another facility or back home, and then provide explanation and demonstration of any medical tasks your caregiver will need to perform at home.
Wow, I have not heard anything about that. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
I'm very curious about that. Do you mind saying what hospital that was? And I can do some investigation and get back to Brett with it.
it probably was Northern Nevada in Sparks.
Okay. Yeah, we work very closely with Northern Nevada, and the only thing that rings a bell is that they're, and Ryan, you may know a little bit about this, that there is some compensation for family who provide care through something, isn't there? This has been years since I've heard about it, but like someone could state, I'm a family member, I'm a caregiver for this person, and then through maybe the state, they get some compensation, or through Medicaid, they get some compensation. That's the only thing that even sort of rings a bell for that.
Yeah.
I'll look into it.
I don't think that has anything to do with Medicare, maybe Medicaid. And then definitely, Kathy, I assume you're talking about the Affordable Care Act, right?
Well, it's not indicated on here, but
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of I think that has something to do with the Affordable Care Act. I think we're kind of talking about two different things though. There's no compensation for family caregivers that I know of through anything besides Medicaid and long-term care insurance. That's the only two that I know of. Yeah, I don't know anything. Yeah, and the Medicaid program is a Medicaid waiver program, and it's really muddy. I don't really understand it, so I'm not going to pretend to even know what I'm talking about.
Well, thank you for trying, Ryan. And Tammy. And sorry, Kathy, we don't have
I can
better
fumble any
answers.
question.
Do we have any other question? One last question we have time for before we just wrap up? I think we're all good. Well, just thank you everybody at home and especially here in the room for being with us today. And we look forward to hopefully seeing everyone next month, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Shared some great information.
Sure thing, buddy.